clap your hands if you already knew that Daddy Daycare wasn't just a fun hashtag. It was quite literally a scheme packaged, branded, and rolled out by Todd Tucker. Because as of today, it's becoming very clear that Todd Tucker did not walk into this divorce blind, unprepared, or sentimental. He walked in strategic. He walked in ready, and it appears he wants the divorce proceedings public not for transparency, but because he wants to publicly embarrass Kandi Burruss. Yes, we are starting there, because this divorce saga has escalated far beyond a simple, irreconcilable differences situation, and has now expanded into something involving image, money, children, custody, a property, reputation, business, and legacy. And when you add cameras, media, and the internet into the mix, baby, it gets messy fast. Before everything went nuclear, Kandi was actually asked in an interview whether she thought she and Todd could be friends after the divorce. And in typical Kandi fashion, very mature, very composed, very let's keep this cute energy, she said, "Yes, I think after a divorce anybody should be able to, hopefully. I hope we get to be friends. Like, that'll be my goal, y'all." At the time, she genuinely believed that their separation would be amicable, friendly, civil even. Little did she know that Todd was about to go full legal warfare mode and come after everything: the house, the kids, the money, the support, the lifestyle. And not only that, he wanted the entire thing documented and televised through court records. While Kandi was under the impression that both parties were ready to handle their separation respectfully for the sake of the children, Todd went ahead and filed requesting permanent custody, and he did not make that request quietly. In his filings, he painted a narrative that Kandi was essentially an absent mother, too busy with Broadway, Bravo, productions, touring, and business ventures to be present with the kids in a meaningful way. This was the moment everyone around them started to realize that not only were the gloves off, but Todd had no intention of making this easy. Family members were quietly forced to pick sides. Former friends started choosing proximity. And if you've seen the things Kandi's daughter Riley has insinuated or outright said about Todd in the past, then it becomes apparent why Kandi quickly shifted from "let's be friends after this" to "oh, we're doing court games now? Bet." Up until recently, Kandi maintained her usual communication style. She would address her emotions but wouldn't weaponize them. She even admitted publicly that she had filed on a Friday and that this wasn't a sudden decision. She had been emotionally unraveling behind the scenes for a long time. She confessed that all the happy, normal, upbeat content she was posting online was essentially meaningless because privately she had been going through it. In her words, "life has been lifing me." And honestly, that line has now aged beautifully because the way life has continued lifing her throughout this divorce is proof that even celebrities can't shield themselves from relationship warfare. Then came the emergency filing, the moment the internet started humming. According to the documents, once the divorce was announced publicly, Todd pretty much packed up his metaphorical, emotional suitcase and started living like a single bachelor again. He disconnected himself financially from household responsibilities and allegedly stopped contributing to the children's well-being entirely. And when we say entirely, we're talking no tuition, no extracurricular activities, no medical expenses, no vacations, no groceries, nothing. Not one meaningful financial contribution. But on social media? Oh, on social media, Todd was living his best life, traveling, taking selfies, giving scenery, giving nightlife, giving rooftop lounges and curated aesthetics. In between those glamorous uploads, he would occasionally sprinkle in a daddy daycare post. You know the type, driving the kids to school, feeding them snacks, sitting on the floor playing with them, showing off morning routines, the exact sort of documentation that looks like parental involvement, but also happens to serve as a very convenient paper trail for court proceedings. In Todd's videos, the kids are bundled up in the car saying they're cold on the way to school, or they're at home hanging out looking bored while Todd narrates the scene. These clips, while seemingly harmless, take on a new meaning when you place them in the context of litigation, because according to Kandi, Todd barely spends real time with the kids. He just ensures the camera captures enough content for him to later argue that he's carrying the load. After filming, the kids are allegedly handed over to a nanny while Todd goes about his day, and in the court filings, Kandi did not mince words about this pattern. But the real eyebrow raiser came when it was reported that Todd never contributed toward the mortgage or major expenses in the home, even while they were married and living together. Let that sink in. This man allegedly didn't contribute to the home his family lived in, yet now wants primary custody, child support, alimony, and equitable division of Kandi's assets. It makes you wonder, was Todd ever financially contributing in the first place, or was Kandi footing the majority, if not the entirety, of the bill all along? Suddenly, comments about lifestyle maintenance, financial expectations, and marital power dynamics start to hit differently. Things escalated further when Todd allegedly began interfering with Kandi's time with the children. Back in December, Kandi had already announced that the kids would spend Christmas with her in New York while she worked Broadway. At first, Todd agreed, but as soon as flights were booked and the kids were set to leave, Todd decided he wasn't on board anymore and demanded the kids stay with him so he could take them to Great Wolf Lodge. Kandi, in an attempt to avoid being framed as uninvolved, took the kids to the same resort so they could enjoy the holiday, resulting in both parents awkwardly coexisting in a family-friendly water park during a divorce. Let that visual marinate for a moment. This wasn't just petty, it was strategic, because Todd had already requested primary physical custody in his early filings, arguing that his schedule was more stable and therefore he should serve as the primary caregiver. If Kandi had conceded on Christmas, he could easily argue in court that she voluntarily gave up holiday time and that he'd been the more present parent. Kandi responded by asking the courts to intervene, to set a schedule, to mediate communication, and most importantly, to seal the case for the sake of the children. A sealed case would prevent blogs, media outlets, reality TV edits, and social media commentary from using their divorce as entertainment. But Todd wasn't interested. He responded by insisting there was no need to seal anything because he wasn't going to be the one in the press, nor would he go live, nor leak to the blogs. And that begs the obvious question. If Todd really wanted privacy, why oppose sealing the case? The only logical answer is that something is going to come out that Todd wants public. This brings us to the prenup, the centerpiece of Todd's strategy. Todd admitted that he signed the prenup without his attorney present, under stress and hours before the wedding. In legal terms, that is an attempt to establish duress, meaning the prenup may not be enforceable, and if it fails, Kandi's entire empire could be unlocked for division. That includes the Broadway bag, the Bravo checks, production deals, restaurant ventures, songwriting royalties, her multi-million-dollar enterprises, and any shared marital assets. Meanwhile, Todd wants to keep his businesses untouched, while simultaneously requesting child support, alimony, and equitable division. In short, he wants out of the marriage with a financial cushion, a lifestyle stipend, and a public narrative that flatters him while burying her. This is not uncommon in divorces involving one financially dominant partner. Legal experts often describe it as the standard of living argument, meaning the wealthier spouse is compelled to maintain the lifestyle the less wealthy spouse became accustomed to during the marriage. But let's be clear, that argument typically applies in cases where the spouse asking for support was financially dependent due to domestic labor, childcare, or lack of career. In this case, Todd has his own businesses, his own career, and his own network, yet he is approaching the divorce as if he is financially incapacitated. Now, the family side of the situation adds another layer of emotional complexity. Mama Joyce never supported the marriage from the beginning. She famously believed Todd was an opportunist, a man motivated by access and proximity rather than love and partnership. According to reports from people close to the family, Mama Joyce feels both vindicated and furious. Vindicated that her warnings were dismissed for years, and furious that her daughter must now go to war for her own financial safety. Meanwhile, Riley, Kandi's daughter, has reportedly never liked or connected with Todd. She witnessed Todd's relationship with his own biological daughter and noticed that he never fought or supported her with the same vigor he is now demonstrating in the divorce. In Riley's eyes, Todd going scorched earth on Kandi only confirms her earlier reservations. However, the first major update fans received came during her recent appearance on Today with Jenna and Chanel. Kandi revealed that she and Todd actually spent the holidays together with their two youngest children, Ace and Blaze. And no, this wasn't an awkward, forced moment, nor was it something done just for cameras or PR optics. According to Kandi, this was a conscious decision rooted in love for their children. She explained that she and Todd have already agreed on one foundational principle. No matter what happens between them as adults, they will always show up as parents. In her words, "We have determined that no matter what, we're always going to be great co-parents for our kids." That sentence alone shows just how intentional Kandi is being with this transition. Many couples struggle to stay in the same room after a breakup, let alone share meaningful moments like holidays. But for Kandi and Todd, that shared holiday moment was about preserving a sense of normalcy. She elaborated that for their kids, shared holidays aren't about the separation, they're about family. And for her and Todd, maintaining that sense of family for Ace and Blaze means that sometimes birthdays, Christmases, or major celebrations will still involve both parents in the same space, even if the romantic relationship has ended. "We're still family," she said, a sentence that speaks volumes about how she views the new dynamic. With young children, routines matter, traditions matter, and making sure that divorce doesn't mean emotional chaos is a gift that many children don't receive. Kandi went on to address something that a lot of parents struggle with during separation, the transition from one household to two, and the emotional weight children feel when their parents no longer operate as a single unit. She explained that her priority is to make the experience as easy as possible for her children, not just in the logistical sense of drop-offs and schedules, but emotionally. Anyone who has ever been through a family split knows that children often pick up on tension long before anyone says a word. They are perceptive, intuitive, and deeply impacted by changes in tone, distance, or lack of communication between their parents. By choosing to spend holidays together, Kandi and Todd are minimizing that tension and showing their kids that while the form of the family has changed, the foundation hasn't evaporated. In a society where divorce often becomes synonymous with conflict and where children frequently become collateral damage, Kandi's approach stands out. It is sober, thoughtful, and frankly, rare. Some fans have noted that it reflects the model of co-parenting seen in some other celebrity families who prioritize unity, while others have pointed out that every situation is deeply personal and no two divorces look the same. But regardless of opinion, what can't be ignored is the narrative Kandi is shaping, that love does not always leave when a marriage ends. Sometimes it simply changes form. During the interview, Kandi also opened up about how her work has become a form of therapy throughout this deeply emotional period. She is currently starring in the Broadway hit & Juliet, a show that reimagines the story of Juliet with a more modern and empowered twist. For Kandi, joining the cast has come at the perfect moment, not just as a career milestone, but as a coping mechanism. She explained that having a creative project to pour herself into has kept her from sinking into what she described as a sad place. It has been the best therapy for me because sometimes you have to have something to put your focus into to keep your mind out of a sad place. And so for me, it's like singing, performing, learning to be better, doing everything that I'm supposed to do to make sure I'm the best I can be on stage in front of everybody. That reflection is powerful, especially coming from a woman whose career has been rooted in performance for decades. Kandi first entered the public eye through music, songwriting, and entertainment long before she became a reality television icon, businesswoman, and producer. For her, creation has always been a language. It has always been the space where she could rebuild, express, and transform. And during a breakup, especially one that involves children and a long marriage, finding an outlet that isn't destructive makes all the difference. Some people turn to escapism, others turn to grief. Kandi turned to the stage. Co-parenting is one of the most complicated emotional partnerships two people can form, especially when the romantic relationship ends. Unlike other breakups where distance or silence can function as closure, co-parenting requires communication, stability, coordination, and patience, even on difficult days. Kandi's willingness to approach co-parenting from a place of unity rather than resentment speaks to her long-term view of what it means to raise children. It also highlights something many therapists often emphasize. Children benefit most when the focus is on their emotional world rather than the parent's hurt or disappointment. What makes her comments even more striking is that she did not downplay the emotional difficulty of the breakup. She did not pretend that this new dynamic is easy. Instead, she acknowledged that she needed something to redirect her mind, because grief has a way of taking over if it's not given somewhere to go. The image she paints of spending her days learning choreography, pushing her voice in rehearsals, running lines, performing under bright lights, and constantly working toward excellence paints a picture of someone using discipline and creativity as survival tools. It's important to remember that Kandi is not experiencing this breakup in silence or in anonymity. Her life has been public for years. Fans have watched her marriage, her friendships, her businesses, and her motherhood unfold on reality television. When you live in that level of visibility, a divorce isn't just a personal transition, it becomes a public narrative. Strangers speculate, blogs analyze, social media debates, and even when you choose not to comment, commentary still happens around you. For Kandi to talk openly about co-parenting, about family, and about choosing stability during a time when it might be easier to withdraw shows a level of grounded confidence that has defined her throughout her career. And while she didn't go into detail about the reasons behind the split or the internal dynamics between her and Todd, she didn't need to. Not every wound has to be shared to be real. Not every struggle has to be dissected to be valid. By focusing on her kids, her work, and her healing, Kandi has effectively shifted the narrative away from scandal and toward reinvention. What comes next for Kandi is a question a lot of fans are asking. Will she continue on Broadway long-term? Will we see her reflect on this chapter through her music, production work, or future creative projects? Will her co-parenting arrangement with Todd remain as peaceful as it currently appears, or will new challenges emerge as the separation becomes more legally defined? Only time can answer those questions, but for now, what we know is that Kandi is trying to rewrite what divorce looks like for her children, and in a way, she is rewriting what divorce looks like for herself. She made it clear that she and Todd are no longer partners in marriage, but they are still partners in parenthood. And for many couples, that distinction is the line between chaos and cooperation. It also demonstrates something deeply human. Endings are rarely clean, and transitions are rarely linear, but they can be purposeful. The internet is also weighing in. Fans of Kandi are not subtle or forgiving in their commentary. Many argue that Kandi assumed Todd would leave quietly, take the dignity route, and simply walk away. But the divorce has revealed the opposite. As one fan wrote, "Who a man is during the breakup or divorce proceedings is who that man was all along." Others are labeling Todd's behavior as manipulative, calculated, narcissistic, and opportunistic. Comments like, "He talks nice while he puts the knife in your back," and "She paid during the marriage, so she has to keep paying now that it's ending," reflect a growing cultural critique that successful women often underestimate how men will behave once financial power shifts. So the question becomes, did any of us really see Todd acting like this, or were we collectively caught off guard? Was Mama Joyce right all along, or is this a situation where divorce simply brings out the worst in people? Is Todd operating out of malice, strategy, insecurity, or survival? And most importantly, how does this end? Because if the prenup gets voided, this could become one of the messiest reality TV-adjacent divorces in recent memory. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did Todd always give you "I'm building a legal paper trail" energy, or did this turn shock you? And if you believe Kandi underestimated him, tell me why. As always, like, subscribe, and stay tuned because this story is far from over. And trust, when updates drop, I'll be here to break them down. Bye, baddies!